Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where we discuss leading political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. In what appears to be quite a surprise to many analysts and markets alike, the US-China trade talks in Geneva over the weekend went quite well. Regular viewers of China Update, of course, were probably not quite as surprised. In a nutshell, both sides agreed to significantly reduce tariffs for 90 days while establishing a formal dialogue mechanism to discuss trade and economic issues. In identical statements on Monday, the US and China agreed to significantly reduce tariffs before the 14th of May, that is, tomorrow. Beijing lowered levies on US goods to 10% from 125% for 90 days, while Washington is reducing their levies to 30% from 145%. The average rates are still higher than this, however, and we'll touch on this shortly. China also said it would suspend or cancel its non-tariff countermeasures imposed on the US since the 2nd of April. That's likely a reference to China's addition on the 4th of April of 7 rare earths to its export control list. The move immediately lifted market sentiment, fueling a rally in the dollar, global equities, and crude oil, as investors welcomed the prospect of improved trade flows and a stronger global growth outlook. We unpack the market reaction in greater detail on my other channel Market Update. I'll put a link to this episode in the description below. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who led the US delegations, said the two sides were working toward, quote, more balanced trade, end quote, and remained, quote, committed to achieving that, end quote. In a joint statement with China's Ministry of Commerce, the agreement was described as one that, quote, aligns with the interests of both nations and the common global interest. End quote. Commentators noted the speed and scale of the agreement as a surprise. Quote, that the US was prepared to make a deal so quickly and reduce duties so much suggests more is to come, end quote, wrote UK-based Financial Times' Alan Betty in his Trade Secrets newsletter published today. However, skepticism lingers. Some analysts warn that the tariff rollback may set a lower than expected baseline for future trade relations. One fund manager told US-based Bloomberg that this might be a, quote, trade deal that worsens trade, end quote, as the reductions could fail to address deeper structural tensions or restore pre-trade war levels of access. Notably, the deal is not legally binding and leaves room for further negotiation. Bessent emphasized that the US was not seeking a full decoupling from China, but noted that the Trump administration still pursued, quote, strategic decoupling, end quote, in sectors such as pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and steel. President Donald Trump echoed optimism at the White House briefing on Monday, saying that the Geneva talks were, quote, very friendly, end quote, and confirming that he may speak with General Secretary Xi Jinping by the end of the week. Quote, we're not looking to hurt China, end quote, he said, adding, quote, they were very happy to be able to do something with us, and the relationship is very, very good, end quote. According to Capital Economics, the agreement will bring the average US tariff on Chinese goods down to about 40%, while China's duties on US products will drop to roughly 25% levels, still far above pre-trade war norms, but well below the peaks reached earlier this year. For weeks, we've been following Chinese state media trumpeting that it will fight to the end and posting many nationalist commentaries. So why this change now from Beijing? Well, as we have also been following for weeks now, the trade war, if prolonged, would be extremely painful for an already shaky Chinese economy. As UK-based Reuters writes today, quote, behind closed doors, Chinese officials have grown increasingly alarmed about tariffs' impact on the economy and the risk of isolation as China's trading partners have started negotiating deals with Washington, according to 3 officials familiar with Beijing's thinking, end quote. Washington-based veteran China analyst Bill Bishop also posted his thoughts on these developments today. The most salient observations are worth quoting at length. Quote, both sides look to have blinked, but I think the US side blinked harder. In addition to the significant reduction of tariff rates on PRC goods imported into the US for 90 days, the establishment of a dialogue mechanism with designated leadership is something that will make the PRC policymakers very happy. They love dialogue mechanisms. The Chinese side has justification for saying things like China's previous resolute countermeasures and fighting stance have been very effective against the US government. However, there is no doubt that there is a sense of relief in Beijing that the effective US trade embargo is pushed pushed out at least 90 days while the two sides engage in dialogue. The PRC may believe that driving down the US tariff rate and starting a dialogue will help prevent some other countries from agreeing to US demands about restrictions on Chinese origin goods and transshipments. It may seem even riskier for a third country to anger Beijing when they do not know how the US-China dispute will resolve. I also will bet that they will look at the 90-day pause as just the start, and that Trump will extend it, just as he keeps extending the TikTok talks. On Monday, the State Council released a white paper on national security in the new era. In the Q&A section with a leading official of the relevant department that usually accompanies these types of releases, the unnamed official said, Bishop now quotes the white paper, "China has the resolve, confidence and capacity to cope with US tariff shocks. China will turn pressure into impetus, viewing the US challenge as a strategic opportunity to accelerate the construction of a new security pattern and modernize its national security system and capabilities." Here ends the quoting of the white paper. Back to Bishop. "As nice as it may be to have a pause in the trade war, this white paper is a reminder that the structural challenges in the US-China relationship go far beyond trade." End quote. Indeed, the US-China Cold War is only just beginning. And if you want to be on top of all developments related to this emerging Cold War, as our world moves into a new era of dangerous competition, make sure you're subscribed to China Update, hit the bell notification icon, and you will be. If you're getting some value from today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you'd like to help keep China Update financially sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Next up, one of China's largest online recruitment platforms, Jiaopin Limited, has quietly stopped publishing quarterly wage data, depriving analysts of a key indicator of the country's labour market health. The Beijing-based firm, known for releasing average salaries offered to new hires in 38 major cities, has not released reports for the past 2 quarters, a break from a decade-long practice. The halt adds to a growing trend of statistical opacity in China as youth unemployment surges and salary cuts proliferate. Independent labour data has become increasingly rare. Other sources, including the China Institute for Employment Research and China Descent Monitor, have also suspended their reporting. Jiaopin's latest report, published in October, showed a continued decline in offered salaries, reflecting broader weakness in the job market. Average entry-level wages in China's high-tech, so-called new economy sectors dropped 8% to 13,120 yuan, approximately $1,800 as of April 2024. The data blackout comes as analysts warn of rising job losses tied to weakening exports. Goldman Sachs estimates that up to 16 million jobs are tied to Chinese exports to the United States alone, while Capital Economics predicts as many as 8 million jobs could be lost over 2 years if both exports and property markets remain under strain. Once again, this reminds us why Beijing was so keen to reach a deal with the US over the weekend. An index developed by Capital Economics shows sharper labour market deterioration since mid-2024 compared to the official unemployment rate, which authorities aim to keep near 5.5%. Quote, "Chinese policymakers will probably find ways to keep the published unemployment rate close to their target," end quote, said Julian Evarts-Pritchard of Capital Economics, adding, quote, "but this likely masks broader weakness in the labour market," end quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Tuesday, and I will see you for another episode of China Update on Thursday.